Now, some political analysts have described Ramaphosa's cabinet as a reflection of his commitment to this government of national unity. Senior reporter Sina Gori caught up with Professor Sipho Seepe for his take on this enlarged executive.
What it showed is the president's commitment to the idea of a national unity. One needs to remember that initially when the talk started, it became almost a battle of interpretation between the DA and the ANC. And the ANC continued to say, yes, we can understand the notion of the people have spoken and the will of the people and the issue of proportionality of seats. But the ANC continued to hammer on that we must also create an opportunity where the parties are able to work together, which is also what the electorate had actually said. And there was an attempt of brinkmanship from the side of the DA, talking about that we'll settle for no less than so many cabinet posts. But I think there was also a pushback within the ANC. And there was something that suggested that some felt that if the DA wants to walk away, it might be better for the ANC to start looking at those partners that the DA had actually said are no-go areas.
And to be honest, the DA was never going to leave the negotiations. And I must say that the DA was driving a hard bargain, but they were never going to leave the negotiations. Never. The DA understood that it was between them and the Doomsday Coalition. It's either the ANC chooses the DA or the ANC chooses EFF and MK Party. And the DA was never going to allow that to happen. Of course, while the negotiations were happening, they made it look like it's quite possible for the DA to leave the government of national unity. But when you sit back and think about it, the DA was never going to do that. And I don't think that the constituency of the DA was going to forgive them if they actually dropped out of these negotiations. Because the DA was running on the campaign saying that we cannot allow the ANC to go into coalition with EFF and MK Party. We need to save South Africa. This is what the posters of the DA were saying. Save South Africa. Polosa South Africa. So they said that they will do everything in their power to make sure that the ANC does not go into coalition with EFF and MK Party. But in these negotiations, and the fact that it was mixed with media reaction, mixed with people's reaction, some people actually thought that the DA was going to drop out of the negotiations. But they were never going to drop out of the negotiations because they understood what was on the table. They understood that if they cannot convince the ANC to go into coalition with them, then this country is done. This is what the DA actually understood.
So I do think that that level of engagement and the possible threats of what the DA considered to be doomsday eventuality may have propelled the DA to say we will go so far and no further. But the president also had put his foot down. But what has been amazing about this?
Who are you?
And to be honest, Ramaphosa didn't have an appetite to go into coalition with the political parties that have been insulting him ever since his presidency started. Ramaphosa was never going to go into coalition with MK Party and the EFF. These people have been undermining the president. They have been insulting the president. And Ramaphosa knew that if I were to go into coalition with these people, it's only a matter of time before they overthrow me. So to save himself and to save the ANC from an embarrassment, he had to choose the government of national unity. And he knew that these two political parties, this ANC, this EFF and MK Party, they hate the DA so much that they will never get into the government of national unity. He knew that very well. He knew that these are crime babies and they will never enter into the government of national unity as long as we have the DA and we have the Freedom Front Plus. These political parties that EFF and MK parties considers as white political parties. So it was quite strategic for Ramaphosa. And the fact that Jacob Zuma opened a political party on the 16th of December And that political party took a lot of supporters from ANC. So it was insane to actually expect Ramaphosa to go into coalition with MK party. It was insane. How can you go into coalition with someone who literally just destroyed you? How can you go into coalition again with a political party that confesses that their only existence is to destroy the ANC? This is what the EFF has been saying time and time again, that what we want is to destroy the ANC. So Ramaphosa knew of these things, but he still opened the door. He still opened the door because he understood that these are childish political parties, and they will never enter into the government of national unity. They don't have the cojones to actually sit down with the people they don't like. That's why I will always give someone like Gayton McKenzie a lot of credit, because Gayton McKenzie does not see eye to eye with the DA. But Gayton McKenzie did not allow his hatred for the DA to actually push patriotic alliance out of the governance. He did not allow that to happen. And today, as we speak, Gayton McKenzie is the Minister of Sports, Art and Culture.
Is that here is a president who has been weakened in the polls. Here is a person who has brought the ANC down. But he has used this moment to recraft and to reinvent himself by simply saying, when I talk about a national government of national unity, I mean having many players. And what does he do? He goes to get many players so that when you talk about national conversations, you have a large number of these people having that conversation.
And people will never give Ramaphosa the credit for reinventing himself after the battering that he got in these elections. They will never give Ramaphosa his credit. This is the reason why they keep saying that, no, this is not the government of national unity. Actually, this is a grand coalition of the ANC and the DA, because these people cannot sit back and fathom and actually contemplate about one man being able to pull 10 political parties and make sure that we have a common ground. How many people can actually do that? How many people can actually call 10 political parties with different ideologies in one room and say, guys, can we please find the common ground so that we can govern the country better? How many people can do that? This is the reason why, even today, they are still trying to discredit Ramaphosa for how he reinvented himself. Because many people thought that Ramaphosa was done after the elections. They counted Ramaphosa off as soon as the election results were announced that the ANC is going to get 40%. Many people actually counted Ramaphosa out. They said, no, Ramaphosa, you need to pack your bags. There is no way that the ANC is going to keep you. But look at what Ramaphosa has done. Look at what Ramaphosa has done. Man.
But there was also something very clever that he did, with some people may call a stroke of genius, is to say, yes, I understand that I'm weakened politically, but I'll need people who I can enlist to fight my battles. So from what would have been a strong black voice and opposition, he selected people who would be very great soldiers, people who would be ready to go to battle. Bring somebody like Gayton McKenzie, bring somebody like Holomesa, bring in somebody like the PC president. You begin to sophisticate the discussion about really what does it mean when you talk about the black voice. So the opposition, which is mainly the MK and EFF, now have a job cut for them,
And guys, we need to make it clear that the opposition is the MK party. I don't know why we keep saying that the opposition, and I'm also guilty of that, of saying that the opposition, MK party and the EFF. No, the main opposition is the EFF, is the MK party. We need to actually hammer it home until the EFF understands that they've now turned into a minority party. The main opposition is MK party.
Serious job. Then the second thing is, by bringing these strong leaders, you're also neutralizing the DA. In a sense, some of us have always argued that had it been left to largely the DA, there would have been a DA-led government. But by bringing the likes of Holomesa, the likes of Gayton McKenzie, what the president has sought to do is so to neutralize this sense of entitlement, this sense of push and triumphalism that you found within the DA. But at the same time, it is really up to all those parties to say, how do we begin to play in this? But we saw promotions and demotions. And what is most important about that is that the president had to be.
And guys, looking at it, do you think that the leaks between the ANC and the DA, do you think that those leaks were deliberate? Do you think that the ANC and the DA, there's a chance that the ANC and the DA were playing us while we were busy with the leaks, the negotiations were going on? Because I do think about these things sometimes, and what if the ANC and the DA, they were just making sure that there is something that is keeping us occupied while the negotiations were happening? Because if you remember, last week, people were talking about these negotiations collapsing. People were talking about the fact that the ANC and the DA, they cannot reach out on a deal. And it means that these negotiations have collapsed. Do you remember how IOL, that bogus news publication that belongs to Iqbal Seif, you remember how they came out and said that the negotiations have collapsed between the ANC and the DA, only for them to come out a couple of days ago and say that, okay, we have reached a deal. So was it part of their plan to keep the people occupied while they were busy with the negotiations?
Generous by also persuading his own members that if I'm talking about the government of national unity, some of you may not be ministers because I've got to give those positions to other people. So you saw people like Mondli Ngobele, who used to occupy a very senior position as a minister in the presidency, and pushed out of that, now demoted to the position of a deputy minister. You saw people like Sikes Galala, who has been doing excellent work, being also being told that the chief, maybe for the national interest, you may have to take a bit of a nosedive. So these are some of the intricate things that he had to deal with. And of course, he had to keep some people. You cannot have Ramaphosa without Mantashe. You cannot have Ramaphosa without Braden Zimande, because these are the real people who will create enough weight within the ANC alliance in terms of the discussion. So in a sense, the president owes his presidency right now to people like Gwede, because as a chairperson, he can dictate what gets discussed and how long it's going to be discussed. So he kept those people like NG, who had been long and had stabilized the basic education. He couldn't just get rid of her. He had to find a place for her, and he took her to defense. But given that this is not her forte, he decided to say, no, I'll bring Bandolo Mesa. And of course, some people have argued that why couldn't you give him a ministerial position? And so given that the Holomisa is a person who has always been...
Take the leap.
Come on, man.
Be a debt bug.
I hate it.
Show you how.
Guys.
I can actually stand here and say, I was under debt review.
You kind of feel
constructively critical whenever he's called to serve in government, in various commissions. He has always done an excellent work. So the fact that he didn't get a ministerial position is something that was in itself strange. But on the whole, one could actually say the president has actually done well in keeping to his promise of saying, I'm going to create a government of national unity. That's the first one. Secondly, he has also been concerned about his own durability in government by making sure that I have enough people who are going to fight battles for me, and I also have enough people who are going to neutralize the triumphalist tone of the DA.
And guys, how long do you think the government of national unity is going to last? This is one of the things that the people are actually debating. How long do you think the government of national unity is going to last? Because ideally, we would love to see it go for like 5 years. Because as long as we have the government of national unity, we can keep the radicals on the side. But right now, you need to understand that people like Julius Malema are going to do everything in their power to make sure that this government of national unity does not succeed. So ideally, it's 5 years. And guys, how long do you think this is going to last? And do you think, by looking at the cabinet of Ramaphosa, do you think that it is proper, solid? Do you think that it's proper, it is not going to fracture anytime soon? The fact that all the political parties in the government of national unity, all 10 of them, they got something in the cabinet. Do you think that incentive is going to be enough for them to run for 5 years?
Given us quite a comprehensive look at what we saw last night taking place, giving us context as well. And as we've been saying from the very beginning, it's been something that's been touted that this election was really a dawn of a new democracy. And now this is that democracy in action. What can we look out for as we going forward? What are some of the pitfalls that both President and Ramaphosa should look out for while we go into this new era, as well as us as the nation, as the electorates? What are some of the concerns that you may have?
Well, the first thing that we must understand is that politics is not a place for people to be nice to each other. It's a very bloody sport. And most people go into government and go into politics to access power. So the parties that are there in the government of national unity, they also have their own agenda. I mean, Helen Zilles has been consistent that during her lifetime she'll see the ANC dead. So it does not mean that suddenly she'll want to see the ANC continue its life or prolong its existence. So she has her own agenda, which is also to respond to her own constituency. Ramaphosa also has his own constituency, which I hope is not going to sell out on, which is, I've been talking about issues of redress, issues of land. And in a sense, you could see that those portfolios that would have been very critical, he has sought to make sure that they remain within the ANC, like labor and employment, like finance, like trade and industry, because those are the areas or portfolios where there's more discussion around the black economic empowerment, where there's talk about economic transformation. So he has made sure that that is within his. So he also has an interest in the same way that the ANC has an interest, in the same way that others have. But the problem will come when each ministry wants to use the position to advance themselves with an eye into the future, where the person says, and that is also the position of other parties, that once we get into power, closer to power, will be represented in the legislature, will be represented in the executive, and will be able to pursue our own programs. So that will be a challenge. That to what extent are parties willing to subject or subordinate their own interest and inclination to what may be good for the country. But for the voters, especially the black voters who have punished the ANC, they've been very clear that for 30 years we gave you a chance, and that today we remain landless. Today the color of poverty is black, the color of unemployment is black, the color of hopelessness is black. So you need to do something. How he's going to maneuver that is where the real politics comes in, because when he had 100% ministers from the ANC and he had control, he couldn't deliver. The question, will he be able to deliver? And these parties that are there will be looking at opportunities to also use the positions to gain political traction, so that come the next election, they come out better.
But I think that there's a possibility that Ramaphosa and this administration can deliver better than they did in the previous administration, because ANC, when it was by themselves, they were arrogant, and you could somehow get the sense that Ramaphosa was actually deprived from doing what he wanted to do. So the fact that he has other political parties in the cabinet, it means that maybe something can be achieved. Because for the past 30 years, the ANC has been alone in running the country. The ANC has been alone in running the country, and as much as they did what they could, it was not enough. It was not enough, and we saw the decline from Zuma era to Ramaphosa era. So that Ramaphosa does not want to go out as one of those presidents who actually destroyed the country. This is the reason why he didn't go with that coalition. This is the reason why he put his head on the chopping block and understood that many ANC cadres are going to despise for choosing the side of the government of national unity, to go into the government of national unity with political parties like the DA and the Freedom Farm Plus. He knew very well that some of his cadres are going to despise him, but him as a man, he understood that I cannot go out as one of those presidents who actually destroyed South Africa. So maybe I need to do everything in my power to make sure that when I go out as the president of this country, maybe I can say, okay, this is what I have achieved for the people of this country. So for some reason, man, you can say that ANC getting 40%, it was blessing in disguise. It was blessing in disguise, because right now you could feel that everything is new, man. You could feel that this is a new South Africa, whether you like it or not. You could feel that this is a new South Africa with a new administration. Other political parties are now in government. We are no longer looking at the ANC government, that same stagnant ANC government that is corrupt and arrogant. It is no longer that. The people that are in cabinet now are the people that have been chosen by President Ramaphosa to be in cabinet, and those people have been mixed with other people from different political parties. So this government of national unity, for me, I think is going to work, because political parties that have entered into this union, they don't want this thing to fail, because they understand that if government of national unity fails, many of these political parties are going to suffer. They are going to suffer heavily. So that's why it is going to be very important for all of these people to work together and to make sure that the government of national unity succeeds. That's why they're going to have to work hard and make sure that this whole thing succeeds, because it is not only about them, it is about the political parties they represent. It is about the constituency they represent. So they have to make sure that if one of ours is occupying a certain portfolio, we have to make sure that person performs very well. Because if that person does not perform very well, the people will say, this person belongs to a certain political party, which means that political party does not have the capacity to perform on a national level. So there is no need for us to continue voting for the people that do not have the capacity to perform on a national level. It is very important. It is very important for this whole thing to work. Guys, I don't know, man. Please tell me what you think about the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like button, and the most important part, subscribe. My name is Thomas Mabaso. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.